This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hello, my name's Simon Brew. I'm the editor of Film Stories magazine, and a very warm welcome to the Film Stories podcast.
Come with me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And movies that had stories.
And the story just sucks them in.
This is just the beginning.
Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to a special episode of Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew. As always, it's absolutely everything you need to know about me. The aim of the podcast, well, usually every week what I do is I tell the stories of two films. I tell production stories, development stories, behind the scenes stories, bits and bobs like that. And they tend to be films with a bit of a mainstream leaning, films that I'm invested in. And every now and then I'm lucky enough to have a guest on to talk about their films in a special episode of Film Stories, and that's just what you've happened across here. So, what's going to happen in this chat? I'm going to be talking to director Peter Cattaneo. Now, he sprung to fame off the back of directing The Full Monty, his first feature, for which he got a Best Director Oscar nomination. He'd already, at that stage, been nominated for a Best Short Film Oscar as well. But then, off the back of The Full Monty, he went and made a film I really liked, and I love The Full Monty, but I really liked 2001's Lucky Break, which I think is less heard of. And then more recently, which is where the starting point of our conversation is, he's made 2019's Military Wives that made it into UK cinemas in 2020, just as UK cinemas were closing, which is where we're going to pick the conversation up. Just for the basics of Military Wives, it's based on the documentary series fronted by Gareth Malone on the BBC. The script to the film was written by Roseanne Flynn and Rachel Tunnard. The cast led by Kristen Scott Thomas and Sharon Horgan. Jason Fleming in there, as we're going to briefly talk about him. He plays an officer, and there's a bit of a saluting problem, as we're going to come to. Just the basics of Lucky Break. Well, that one dates to 2001. It's a film about a group of convicts led by James Nesbitt who try and stage a breakout from a prison by performing a piece of musical theatre, Nelson the Musical, which has been penned by the governor of the prison, played by Christopher Plummer. And also in that film, the likes of Bill Nighy in there, Timothy Spall in there as well. So we're going to talk about both of those films. What I'm going to do, it's a very long preamble this, isn't it? I'm going to best crack on. What I'll do is I'm going to play you a clip from Military Wives, and then we'll pick up the conversation with Peter the other side of this.
We need to be organised, something we both know is not your strong point.
Do you know what? All you do is belittle me, but I am trying.
This is going to be a disaster.
Guys, please don't give up. I know we can do this.
You're lost, you can look, and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you, I'll be waiting. Time after time. You're lost.
And that was a clip from Military Wives. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by its director, Peter Cattaneo. Hello to you, sir.
Hi, how are you doing?
Well, I'm sweltering and hot, but that's probably not kind of the detail anyone particularly wants to hear.
Yeah, me too.
The joys of the West Midlands, I'm afraid. If it's okay with you, I sort of want to start at the end, because I'm kind of curious what it's like to be a filmmaker caught in the middle of what you've been caught in the middle of over the last couple of months. That you put several years into making the film Military Wives, which I like an awful lot. You got it premiered, you took it to Toronto, you had this really warm reaction to it. Then it was released. Then it was premium video on demand released very, very quickly. And you kind of found yourself almost at a cutting edge of whatever this new normal is going to be. I just wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Simon. It's been a strange ride, really. I mean, I have to say,
there's a few ironies. One of which is that we finished the film in August of 2019.
Yeah.
And so we could have opened it at any time between then and when it did open. So it sat on the shelf for 6 months, which is, it was fun. We went to Toronto Film Festival, went to Rome, I went to Palm Springs Festival. So we were waiting for what the financiers quite rightly see as a good time of year for that kind of film, which is not getting swamped by Christmas, and then kind of getting through the award season when everyone's just watching everything that's being talked about in the nominations, and then come out as and it felt like it had a spring in its step. It all felt perfect, and like we'll be post-Brexit, it's all sorted, everyone will be up for a film which is a bit of a celebration and life-affirming. But then the news started ticking, because you look back on the news a few months and you can't believe the way people spoke about the virus. We all have this whole language now that we use these terms all the time, the words we never used before. But so in the first week of March, we had our premiere, building up to the March the 6th opening. And I look back now, it wasn't that long ago, we were all hugging and crammed together in this little, afterwards the cinema was packed. We went to this little club for like an after-party thing, and it was all packed together, and everyone hugging, and it's like, wow. But even then, I was saying to the producers, like, aren't you? And Christian kept saying, I'm worried about this virus thing, And it was like, no, one guy said to me, oh, no, we're in Ireland. We're in Ireland, I think we'll be all right. And I was nervous, and then I was with a group of friends. We were away for the weekend. On the weekend, it opened, and I was, hubris perhaps, but I was kind of hoping. It felt like such good vibes around the film. I was hoping it'd be great, and we'd be looking at the figures, and then it all just kicked off. Literally, the weekend it opened, it kicked off, and immediately affected the confidence, especially the older audience, who were quite a big section of the audience for the film. And it was only out for a week, and then that's it, shut down. So it felt really, really grim, And it would have been all right, I think, if it had not even opened. If it just not opened, then you could just like redigest and open it on video on demand. Like it's done that in America. We opened Military Wise straight to Military on demand onto video on demand, and it's felt fine because it's first of all the new normal, and also that all the marketing has been based around that. And actually, the finances over there, distributors in America, it's done quite well, and they're quite excited because they've been able to position it as like a great lockdown film. Yeah. As it's about sort of getting together and group activity. You can't get more kind of group activity than a choir. The opposite of social distancing.
I mean, I saw it in a cinema that opening weekend. I mean, we all went. My youngest is 7. I took my dad as well, and it was busy. I remember that. What you were saying?
Yeah, it did well on the opening weekend was pretty good actually. Yeah. It was a good opening, and then they've had all the sums that, like, if it carries on like this as predicted with good word of mouth, I mean, I try not to tune into that, because if you start just doing it for the numbers, then that's not why I really do it. But obviously, once you made the film, it's pretty good fun. If it feels like it's got a good vibe about it, and they were doing projected based on the opening weekend, it's like, oh, we're all so excited. And then, really tough. And it didn't help, I don't think, that the price of some of these premium online releases. I did quite well, actually. I think they were pleased with the numbers online. But I actually have mates ringing up and going, you haven't got a DVD, have you? I've just seen how much it is to cost to play your film.
It's $15.99, wasn't it? When it was following the Universal lead. I remember that.
And to be fair, that's actually it's not Lionsgate. It's Apple and Amazon and people distribute. The platforms. Yeah. They want to do it for less, but I think it adds up, because actually people do it. It makes 50% more than if it was a tenner, and financially actually it did okay. It just didn't have a very good vibe about it. Like perfect lockdown film, but you got to pay the big man lots of money.
I mean, the idea of perfect lockdown film, I was interested in something Gurinder Chadha had been saying about the film Blinded by the Light, that when it was released in cinemas last year, the pushback against that film, I think it's a really terrific film, but the pushback she was seeing about it was almost a snobbishness towards it being a feel-good movie at heart, even though it goes to some very dark places, a feel-good movie. And then in lockdown, she was finding lots of people discovering it and thinking they wanted feel-good movies after all. And that the snobbishness towards it had dissipated a little bit. Do you get any sense of that? Because you've made some cracking feel-good movies, and have you encountered that snobbishness that goes with it?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, I think what a lot of people said was, I think it was the poster and the visual artwork and the sell of it was very heavily comedy.
Yeah.
And it's not comedy.
Yeah.
But of course you don't want to call it a dramedy or some awful. It just sounds like not very good drama, not very good comedy.
Yeah.
But it's a drama with music, and some of the characters say funny things. They're not jokes. They make joke with each other because they're just they're working class, all these wives, and that's what they do. I think they say that's the main pushback. People go, I was thrown by the film because I was trying to recalibrate myself from what I expected to see. And of course, some people say it was not that funny. It's like, well, it's not, it's not meant to be funny, but it's never made to be a comedy. In terms of the feel-good factor, no, I think people, I personally just like a whole range of films depending on my mood, but broadly, I can feel better about life after I've seen the film than I did before. I just love uplifting movies, and I like taking that into the world. It's great, you made a movie, and people come out and they're like, oh my god, it was I feel so much. It just feels really good, to do that to a group of people.
I mean, you talk about the comedy element there and perhaps the slight missell involved in it. I've always found, I found with your work, and I really love this, a little bit of a Trojan horse element anyway, that if you look at The Full Monty and you look at Lucky Break, they're funny films, but they're dealing with some really tough stuff in the midst of it all. And I'm curious if that's the kind of project that appeals to you, because I'm aware you probably got a bit pigeonholed straight after The Full Monty, but you seem to home in heavily on human beings. I mean, they seem to have come back into trend.
Yeah. No, I do like finding the funny. I mean, that's how I live my life as well. I think, it's how do you deal with, most people do. It's like, you all laugh. People, you laugh at wakes, people do. It's like, it's just been movies, I can't for some reason. But I do like to find an issue means something to get my teeth into thematically and to talk and have more to talk about. I mean, the other thing I've spent a lot of the last few years doing is the TV series Rev, with Tom Holland, about church, which all deals with faith and the Church of England in modern world, but that has a similar thing. It's got lots of funny, but it's got a kind of issues under it and a melancholy under it all as well, which it's just a tone that they'd probably meet me and say, oh, he's quite melancholy but funny bloke, hopefully.
Yeah. So I'm going to have that as my business card, I think. I mean, it's worth noting, I think, as well, for us on the outside looking into the film industry, that from what I can work out, it took several years to bring this to the screen in the first place, back to Military Wise, and then you had 5 weeks to film it. That it was. I wonder if you can capture some of that process to us who do gaze from the outside inwards.
I think people aren't always. It's about focus actually, because people involved in a project will have lots of projects. They've got fingers in pies, and they're just ticking. Things are chugging along. And so people go off and do something else, they come back, they're not busy, they're not focused, and we need all the parties, writer, producer, director, to be really focused for things to progress quickly. So that's partly what happens, is that people develop things on the slow track. I particularly didn't want to send it out to any actors or financiers until I thought the script was ready. So that just took time. It's just like life. It's like, oh, the writer's having a baby. Okay, well, that's 6 months. You've got to wait now. And then and I still was resisting sending it out actually, and I sent the script out to, when it went out to Kristen and Sharon, I was sort of caveating saying this kind of gives you an idea of what we want to do, but it's, we've got another couple of drafts to go to get it right. I want to get your input. Should you be interested? And then they kind of said yes, and Kristen said, I've got a window in October. I think this was in like June or something. It was like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was it, flat out, and Rachel was able to drop everything and just rewrite with talking to Sharon and Kristen and somebody on this massive fast track. And then it was always a 6 to 8 week shoot really, because it's quite time consuming with the music and the playback and an ensemble always takes longer, because every time you got 8, 9, 10 actors and 12 extras in the room so often. It's like someone's got a problem, someone's mic has gone down, someone's got to go to the loo, and it just drags. So it needed, 6 weeks was the minimum, and then literally the day before we went into prep, it's like, we've lost this one extra sort of £500,000. It's like, can you do it in 5 weeks? or even not make it. I was like, I can't do it in 5 weeks, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And off you go. But we we did it with not enough time, but we got there actually, and having experienced cast and really great head of department. And actually, I think some of the stuff that I like about the energy of the film is partly to do with the lack of time in a weird way. Like the rehearsal scenes are done very quickly and not many takes.
Yeah.
And like 3 cameras, and as live really, just do them, it has this energy to it. It feels quite real. I think those singing scenes, that was always my big watch out, to not make those singing scenes feel sort of plastic.
I think it was Matthew Walker's talking about directing Pride, where he said, I don't know if this is a British film thing at the moment, but one of the challenges he's talked about in that movie was because he had so many prominent characters in shot at any one time right throughout the film, that it was framing it to capture lots of people in one go consistently, far more than ordinarily he would in a film. Did you find that? Because those rehearsal scenes, I mean, they're really human. There's a feeling of we're in the room with people who can't necessarily sing very well.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm very pleased with those scenes, and I think I've been doing it a while now. A lot of experience came in, and to just create an energy in the room, and knew that a certain amount of editing it's there. Even if it's not, each take isn't kind of working in its totality.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that thing with those ensemble, that's why with Military I really made sure we did it on the 2-3, and Lucky Break we did on 2-3-5 format, so you've got the wider screen. But it's also just the blocking that's hard, because it's the thing of like, does everyone stand there like the Last Supper painting, kind of facing the camera? Because half people are in a natural situation, half people will be facing away from the camera.
Yeah.
So you try and create these kind of tableaus which feel natural but are slightly weird. Everyone's slightly favouring the camera. But I do like ensemble scenes, especially when they all play out in a wide shot like that, and you can choose where to look. And then we didn't do many close-ups. We only really saved the big close-ups for the final performance. And I quite like shooting stuff at that kind of slightly sloppier size, and see the body language and let the audience decide who to cut to with their own eyes, really.
I understand you were insistent on your actors singing live, that this was not a case that they were going to record the music afterwards, and that also they weren't at the peak of their singing powers, that they didn't over practice or rehearse and make it. And it drew to mind, I keep coming back to the film Lucky Break, which is a film of yours I don't think anyone really talks about, that I enjoyed enormously. In fact, I've got the DVD in front of me here. Here's the sound effect for you. And one of the stories I read into the making of Lucky Break is Stephen Fry went away and wrote the musical at the heart of that, and you sent him back because it was too good again. And he needed to bring the level down a little bit. Yeah. I'm curious if you could talk to that a little bit, about trying to find the balance between making it work on a screen, but also finding that line between okay but not great.
Yeah, I think with Stephen's, the lyrics, because he wrote the book and Anne Dudley wrote the music, and they were just like incredibly beautifully poetic and clever, and wasn't more clever than the Christopher Plummer's character could ever have probably come up with. So, well, not something you want to say to Stephen Fry too often, but that just sounds a bit too clever. So he kind of went back and simplified them all a bit. I think I did a few rewrites, and I kind of actually gave him the brief to do some awkward rhymes, which one too many syllables, or kind of rhymes that don't quite get there. Once he had that brief, he could really enjoy that, having a bit of fun with that. But it was the same with Military Wives in terms of the singing performances. Yeah, we tried. I mean, they had to rehearse the final song because the film takes place over 5 months of them being together as a choir, but we were together for 5 weeks. And anyway, the way the schedule worked with the Albert Hall and stuff, that final performance was going to take place about halfway through the shoot. So I wanted to make sure they were reasonable at that before we even started shooting. So that was the only rehearsals we did, was to do that song, the final song. And the great thing about that as a slight sidebar was it just bonded the cast to do these. The first morning, they'd never met each other. You've got some of the actors who've never been in front of a camera before, and meeting Dame Kristen Scott Thomas, and they're all in a row just in their jeans, and right, we're all going to sing together. And there was nowhere to hide. And it was like just like in the movie, who's an alto, who's a soprano, and they'll line them up like that, not like who's got the most Oscar nominations or who runs, who's made 1,000 hit comedies like Sharon Horgan.
Yeah.
So they were just mixed up, mashed up, and it bonded them and broke all barriers within 2 hours. It was amazing. But I just wanted to make sure they only rehearsed that, and all the stuff they do early on, which is very ad hoc and unprepared, when they start singing "Don't You Want Me" and stuff like that, was done as live. And so, but I kept hearing, we'd walk around, we were doing a lot of it in this army base up in Catterick, and I'd walk around and I'd hear these little voices of groups of actors trying to do secret rehearsals of these songs. And I'd be like going in, going, no, and then even when we were shooting, they kept getting their phones out and getting the lyrics up. And I was like, no, because I wanted that thing. Everyone thinks they know "Don't You Want Me," but you get to, if you haven't got the lyrics up, you get to the third line, you're like, what is it next? You're not quite sure, even though you think it's one of your all-time favourite songs. So, so it was just to make sure I had that live edge to it. And they kept saying, we're actors, we can pretend to be bad, I mean, there was the one thing where they do in the market where it goes really horribly wrong, where they were acting, or we do little tricks, because they had the backing music in there, in covert earpieces, but we do little tricks like play that out of key, or suddenly go fast and then slow, and that would throw them. So, we had like ways to kind of mess with their minds on the music front.
The bit that looked the coldest to film, because if I got this right, you filmed it in the winter anyway, but there's a sequence where you go off and you shoot a singing sequence. What is it, under a railway bridge?
In a railway arch. Near Harrogate.
It looked freezing.
It was, and muddy, man. And it was one of those things where it's also when we had a very limited budget, and we've got this rain machine going in the rain. It's raining already. We've got a rain machine going. Should have known that in Harrogate, but. So it was knee-deep mud, and they were great for a while, the poor actors. But I've got like 3 layers of North Face on, and big special boots and all that, and they're just there in their civvies, So and I was saying it's supposed to, because actually that scene was supposed to be. I was obsessed with the fact that it takes place over 5 months, and actually we shot it all in 5 weeks in October and November.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to, in the timeline in my head, that was actually in the summer, but like the actors are just no one will notice, and we're going to wear fucking hats and. Sorry, podcast. We're going to wear hats and gloves, and we don't care. It's Yorkshire. So that was grim in that railway arch. But lovely little scene there. It sounded great. It actually came from, because Gareth Malone, who did the documentary about Military Wives, was a consultant on the film, and he read the draft of the script, and I put a scene in. I just felt like it was just a filmmaker's instinct to just get the story out of the base at some point and out to the countryside around the base, and I had them like singing on top of a hill, kind of at the top of their lungs, just to kind of let rip. And it felt a bit too like Calendar Girls when they go on top of the hill, and B, Gareth Malone said I wouldn't do that because you would go somewhere. If I was doing that, I would go somewhere acoustically great, like a cave or maybe a railway arch. So there's like, okay, they're out on the moors, it starts raining, they go to this railway arch, and then they all start enjoying the echoey sound, and then they naturally start singing. So that was a great moment where you get like a little collaboration with a collaborator, and an idea gets much better than it was.
There's a film that was obviously important in Britain was Brassed Off. And the finale of Brassed Off takes place at the Royal Albert Hall, but as a proud Midlander, I know that they ended up having to film that at Birmingham Town Hall because they couldn't get the Royal Albert Hall. I don't think it's I don't think it's hugely spoilery to say that your film it gets to the Royal Albert Hall in the final act of it. But did you actually get there?
We shot outside the Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your inside of the Albert Hall? Was it Places of the Midlands? Because I kind of want to make a collection of these.
No, it was virtual.
There was what effects work that you used to realise that?
So the backstage was part of the officers' mess on an army base. And then we shot we shot some plates and put and shot it against green and put them in there.
A pretend Royal Albert Hall. I don't think I've ever seen a film then with the interior of the Royal Albert Hall for real in it.
They're very choosy about what So here's the Royal Albert. They were just the women really sang, and we really filmed the Royal Albert Hall. It just didn't happen at the same time.
Yeah. What was your showing Rocket Man to Elton John moment like when because there are so many real human being stories that you're representing in this film? What was it like when you showed it to an audience of people who were so invested in it and it was their lives on the screen? Did you have a screening like that you were able to sit in?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of military wives present through the film, whether it was conversations with the writers, and I had some conversations early, and then I kind of handed over to the writers as women. They kind of bonded really strongly with a group of military wives.
Yeah.
And so a few of them saw bits of the script, and because we'd have used them, it was a great thing about being up at Catterick, we did some of it at RAF Halton as well, is you'd have real military people on set, and of course people leave their scripts around everywhere, so I'd glance over it and some real military wife flicking through the script. I'm thinking, oh my god, fingers crossed, and go up to her. It's like, oh, it seems really good,
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice, but you just never know. And they actually, I found out so you do these, Lionsgate do like a market research test screening before you lock the film, where you get scores and you get comment sheets. Everyone fills in these forms. They recruit an audience of 250 people. They do a focus group. That's brutally nerve-wracking for a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And just before it, we're in the multiplex in Milton Keynes, just wandering around to do a test to make sure the sound levels are all right, and then just wait for your judgment. And just before we were walking in, they said, oh, these are 6 people. These are all real military wives who are in military wives choirs. They're just going to sit at the back, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, now that really is a test screening. So yeah, the film finished, and they weren't allowed to do the cards and do the focus group because they were kind of too partisan.
Yeah.
So they all walked out, and I scuttled out after them into the foyer of the multiplex, and they were like all welled up. They were all wiping their tears away and like thumbs up, and it was amazing. They were just like, you've absolutely captured it so well. It was beautiful, and we had so much. When the film came out, we just got so many lovely messages and texts about how too close to the bone in terms of, but not in a bad way, it was some of them, and how much the details rang true. And so yeah, there were a couple of things about procedural. We kind of ignored a few procedural things, like the brigadier wearing his hat indoors, for example, because
right.
I thought we wouldn't even know he's a brigadier without that sort of brigadier cap thing. But that didn't go down well with the military families, and that Jason Fleming salute. We had a military advisor on set. Jason Fleming salutes with the wrong hand. I don't know what the military advisor was there doing, but he missed that, and the military wives really didn't like that.
The internet is full of websites that chart movie mistakes, and that's going to be yours then. That he saluted with the wrong hand. That's
well, I was like, how much would it cost to sort that out in VFX? And my producer said a blank expression. I was one of the many who was beguiled, and I really adore the full Monty, and I love the discussion that it's having about mental health 20 years really before cinema was ready to have it. But I found an interview you did around that time where you hinted that the shadow of it was a bit intimidating, that you were being sent all sorts of stuff from Hollywood. I like to think you were being sent Die Hard sequels and stuff once you've had a hit movie. What I really got fascinated by, though, and I saw this film when it came out, I've just mentioned it just before, was you chose to make Lucky Break. And I just wonder if you can go to that decision for me a little bit, because I got the sense that the only way you were going to be offered a full Monty clone to do was to come up with an idea yourself, and I think that's what happened, wasn't it? Yeah, well, I was doing also a lot of kind of quite bizarre stuff in Hollywood, and
I mean, spill as many details of those as you like.
I can't remember. I mean, it was just a life-changing experience. The whole thing. This is back so long ago. I came back. You come back, and I went away for a few days, and you also have to remember this is when I just was living in my little flat and in southwest London, and we had a new baby. My son was born. He was due to be born on the day of the Academy Awards when I was nominated. He came a few days late, few days early rather. So I got to the Oscars for like a day. I got there for the evening. Went
Your
back
second
the next morning.
time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've been nominated for a short film before that. But so we were going through all the stuff with a new baby and trying to deal with that. and then we went away for a few days, got back, and my answer machine, which shows how long ago it was that I had the answer machine with a little cassette in it. And it was like, beep, hi, Peter. I just saw his mates taking the piss. Hi, Peter, this is Bruce Willis. Just to say I love your movie. And then it was like, beep, Peter, Sigourney Weaver here. It was, you couldn't believe it. I was just lying on the, then I remember we got a limo pulled up outside with all these incredibly expensive baby gifts from Selfridges because Sigourney was in town and she wanted me to direct a film. And she sent around all these baby gifts for our new baby. And I was just like hiding I looked out at the limo outside, I was like diving behind my sofa, just like hiding, laughing.
Tell me it was an Alien sequel. That would have been perfect.
No, it was a long story. It was actually a feature remake of the short film that had been nominated, Dear Rosie, which was a short film that had been nominated.
That was
Sigourney wanted to make it into a feature film. So it was crazy to be, in that limelight. It was insane. And to be honest, it wasn't really on the cards to go to America with a new baby. My dad was, it was just, life was going on. I had my dad was suffering from dementia, trying to get him into a home, and it's like, I'm not going to just suddenly get on a plane and go to America. So really, the main reasons for not going were personal. But I think that was quite helpful in a way, because I think I also just felt I didn't know how to follow up a film that it wasn't just like a hit that I thought, I was surprised by what a hit was, but I also felt a great affinity to it. I've got mates who've made their first hit, and they're like, trouble is, it's not really my kind of movie. I just made it, and now everyone thinks that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But, I felt it completely reflected me. I felt very proud of it, and so it's very, very hard to, it's not going to be, the thing is, the next one's not going to be as good as that.
Yeah.
And rather than just decide, well, that's the way it is, just get out there and make the not as good film immediately, I kind of kept waiting, thinking maybe I can come up with an idea or write a script or something will come through the door, which is, going to be on level with it. But in the end, I already had Lucky Ray was already knocking around as an idea, had been for ages. And so I just carried on that line, developing it, and then it came together, So, I was worried it was also, and it was a bit, I remember saying to people at Film 4, the only thing I'm worried about is it's a bit too similar to the Full Monty, and they were like, you just even go, what's wrong with that? But it's going to be by critics. It got compared. It's bound to be a group of guys in a difficult situation, and it could almost have been the sequel in a way. But I just thought, I'm not going to let that. I just want to make it. It'll be, and it was another one of those which is an adventure, learning about a prison system. Kind of amazing to make with a really great cast, and I enjoyed it a lot making it. Yeah, but it did get a bit compared. I completely understood. I knew it would get compared to the Full Monty.
But in your mind, I mean, all of these films presumably take roughly the same amount of effort and mental investment and slices of your life. Irrespective of how us on the outside try and compare them to each other. And I mean, just hearing you talking about it there, I mean, it sounds like a film that you're proud of. I mean, I bang the drum for this film a lot because I just think it's a forgotten British film of the last 20 years, and more people should see it.
No, it has actually got quite a lot of good. It had a second life, on DVD, and people, I do read stuff, and people tell me, and it's really lovely to hear. It's a really charming film, and I know it's got the gritty side to it, but it's an innocent film, really. It was really in the spirit of a kind of evening comedy. And it's a great cast, Jimmy Nesbitt and Lenny James. And I mean, the cast are amazing. Bill Nighy, Christopher Plummer,
Timothy
Olivia
Spall
Williams
as well,
Tim Spall, I know. I mean, they're really, it was great fun. They'll probably never laugh so much on set with that lot started, just jamming.
So I'm conscious we're coming to the end of our time. I'm just one thing you said around the time of the theatrical release of Military Wise is you gave a quote where you said you've got the feeling back, the feeling of film back, that you've done a lot of acclaimed television work, that you've got this. You Opal Dream and The Rocket. I mean, you've done films consistently, but there's I just wonder if there's a sense now that you want to go back to this world more, that there are more stories you want to tell on the big screen.
I think it's just good to change. I think you get spun creatively, also get set into autopilot quite easily. And I really enjoyed the TV format, like the episodes.
Yeah.
It's kind of easier in some ways in terms of the structure, because they can just they don't have to conclude, satisfying but not forced way. And I really found that liberating. On the other hand, it's a bit more of a production line. Like one comes, you're fine cutting one while you're rough cutting the one before it, and you're shooting them all together. It becomes a bit more of a production line. But I just found doing this, going back to the single piece, really, really, I've forgotten how great that is. You know, it's a single piece, and you're not, oh, that'll do for that episode, let's move on to the next episode. It's like, this has got to be the perfect version of this one piece. And just, I mean, it's a shame to say it now with it on video on demand, but just going to a film festival, having the lights go down to a packed room, and having it, being in amongst an audience watching your film is a massive buzz if it goes down well. So yeah, it was nice to make. But you know, I feel like I got the bug for making a movie. Definitely, and there's the next thing.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it's quite refreshing to go back to the lighter thing of film, of the TV series narrative, where the structure isn't quite so vital. I mean, even some of our favourite TV series don't really end in a very satisfactory way. They just feel like they might carry on, you know. And that's liberating, because it's so hard to get it right in terms of structure. But on the other hand, if you do get it right, it's incredibly satisfying.
Well, huge congratulations on Military Wives. I enjoyed the film enormously, and I look forward to whatever you choose to do next. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Simon. It's been a pleasure.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Bye. Bye.
And that was Peter Cattaneo, director of Military Wives, chatting to me over a Skype line about a week before this podcast was released. I'll be back shortly with your regular weekly Film Stories podcast. In the interim, if you do like this podcast, I'm an independent podcast producer. If you could subscribe or leave a positive review, that would help me enormously. You can find more from me on Twitter at Simon Brew. You can find the entire Film Stories project, including details of our magazines, at Film Stories Pod or at our website, filmstories.co.uk, on Facebook at facebook.com/filmstoriesonline, YouTube at youtube.com/filmstories. But I think that's it for now. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll be back soon with another bunch of film stories. Take care. Bye bye.